Back in the 1800s, textile workers in England felt threatened by new machinery. Would they lose their livelihood to inanimate objects? They weren't going to wait to find out. They smashed the offending technology in organized raids. This ornery group became known as Luddites. Today, if you resist technology, you might be called a Luddite. Our hosts, Colleen Burke and Melissa Birks, don't resist technology, but they may be a little slow on the uptake. Another thing they have in common? Both are north of 50 years old. This begs the question, as you age, are you destined to become a Luddite? Can you belong to AARP and have the latest PC? Let's find out. Welcome to Luddites Unite.
All right, we're back with another edition of Luddites Unite with Melissa Birks and Colleen Burke. And today we have the very exciting guest, Z of Dark Side. Hi, Z.
Everybody. How you
Thanks
doing?
for
How you
joining
doing?
us today. Good.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
First of all, tell us the connection between you and Melissa and how you came to be our guest today.
So Melissa and I met a million years ago on a film set by a mutual friend. And she obviously liked what she saw that I was doing, had this idea for her own film that she pitched about a mechanical steam-powered flying pig that I when I read this thing, there was like no way I was going to not be a part of this. And so we shot, produced, edited, scored the film. It took us like 4 years or so to complete this thing. It's only a half an hour, but since we didn't have any funding, it wasn't like we could all quit our jobs and work for, a month just to make this thing work. So, between all of our schedules and jobs and everything else we had to do, we made it work, and I'm extremely proud of it. So, whatever Melissa needs me to do, I go ahead and do it. I think she's a fantastic writer.
You seem to know what you're doing digitally, like
Yes.
in this realm. It took me about 20 minutes to set up a microphone to make it work with my computer. How is it that were you just born with this? Like, how did you become somebody who is able to be such a producer and grab onto this, what I think of as like new technology?
Born in 1970, so
well, I wasn't even gonna put. Okay,
Oh no,
now you know.
I don't have a problem with my age.
All right.
I have zero issues with it. I am what I am. I'm proud to be this old, because if I wasn't, I would probably be dead. So being 55 is great. But I grew up at a time when there wasn't all this stuff. Of course,
Yep.
we had the rotary dial phones and
Yep.
all that. So watching tech evolve, I was part of that, where most kids don't even know what that even means anymore, because it's always been this. And
Yeah.
so, I think it's been easy to follow. One, because I kind of had to, as a filmmaker and a musician and all that,
Mhm.
I had to embrace tech, or, I would not get where I am now. And I've always been fascinated with tech. Some of it can be scary in some ways, just because of what it could be used for and things like that,
Yes.
but I don't think there's any technology at all ever in the history of humanity that hasn't had that same problem.
Sure.
I mean, technically you could think of even back in the day when there was just nothing but a stone tablet and a hammer and a chisel, that paper became technology, an ink pen, just a quill became technology. And some caveman was like, no son of mine's ever going to use one of those quills. Damn it, I got a hammer and chisel, So, only true men use hammers and chisels, all that stuff. And it was never scary to me, to learn it. I didn't go to school for any of it. It's all self-taught. I didn't even know there were schools for this kind of thing, because I was, born before, I was in school before there was an internet. So, there was no way for me to research any of this stuff. So
Mhm.
it took time. If I had the resources and the schooling, I might be even further along than I am now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, getting back to, so you are joining us because you are doing the production of an audiobook,
Correct.
right? Were you a big
Correct.
reader growing up?
I read all the time growing up.
Cool. Okay.
Which is why, certain things scare me right now with what's going on in this world. I don't think enough people read enough. And not only just reading, but actually understanding what you read. Because I think there's a difference
Mhm.
between just reading words and being able to recite those words and say them, and but to actually understand what you're reading. So yes, I read a lot. I don't read nearly as much as I used to, but I do listen to a lot. Just hence the audiobooks. I
Yes.
don't necessarily listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts,
Yep.
and a lot of the video content that I consume, I'm actually listening to when I'm on the road. Because when I'm here at home, this is my full-time job, doing video
Right.
production. This is what I do for a living. So I
Mhm.
don't have the luxury of just kind of taking a chill pill, because everybody, including Melissa, is cracking the whip all day long. When is my book gonna be done?
I
So,
am
no,
not.
I'm
I've
just kidding.
never
I'm
once
just
said.
kidding.
Maybe I have said.
Yeah. But people, when I tell them they're going to have something done, it needs to get done. So I don't have the luxury of kind of just sitting around and enjoying things. So when I'm in transit from one place to another, that's when I listen to books or my podcast or whatever the case may be.
Sure. So, one of the things Melissa and I had been talking about is the fact that as someone, I grew up reading, I love to read, I still love to read. But as I get older, I don't necessarily go the digital route as much as I do the getting reading glasses or the large print book, right? Um, I do read digital books, but I don't listen to them. How do you see how society is like going these many different ways with how to consume books? Can you speak to that?
I like the accessibility. One, because
Mm.
I work direct. My brother is severely autistic, and I'm on the board of directors for an organization that one that takes care of him, but also takes care of many people with developmental disabilities. And so, having these different modes for different people with different conditions, I think is great. If you want paper, outstanding. If you don't even like the feel of paper, because some people have, text, they don't like the
Sure.
texture, right? So they don't want to touch this stuff.
Mm.
So I like having the access
Hmm.
for just about everybody to pick and choose what you want. Now, I do
Okay.
think though that what bothers me about not having, it's kind of twofold, right? Because when you look at history and how there were book burnings and things like that, right? It's real easy
Yep.
to get rid of a lot of stuff really fast, you
Hmm.
know in just a couple buildings, and just burn everything up, and then now everything's gone unless somebody's got something in their closet somewhere. Whereas with
Right. Right.
digital, you could take it with you, you could share it all over the world and all that. But at the same time, even with that, it's if somebody's server goes down somewhere, and Barnes and Nobles is in that server, and I don't know how that stuff gets dispersed, where these things
Mm.
are in
Right.
clusters, whatever the case may be, but that entire everything, an entire history of everything could be gone. So I don't think there's anything that's foolproof in totality.
Hmm.
I like having the option of having different things in different places all the time. Again, for me, it's all about accessibility when it all
Okay.
boils down to it. And I think we were just forced to have the accessibility we had because it's all we had at the time. Paper was
Okay.
it. There was nothing else.
Yep. Yep.
But if we go back to even when I was talking about the stone tablets, at one time, that was all there was, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then until the printing press came along, only select people even had access to certain things, right?
That's
And if you
okay.
didn't,
Yep.
if you weren't educated or had money or whatever the case may be, then, you were just completely left out. Think about how people who have these ideas, who may have even wanted to write an audiobook, you know, don't have the money. One of our members, I don't know what his particular condition is, but his hands don't work the same way ours does,
Okay.
but now he can speak this into existence and
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
have this thing exist
Yeah.
for us to hear and see what he hears and thinks all the time that would otherwise be completely locked away and probably die with him and just be gone, you know.
You make a really good point about the fact that it's not just the consumers, but it's the creators who benefit
Exactly.
from more technology.
hmm And
Melissa.
in some ways that's bad too, right? Because
Mm.
I want to push back on that because some people have some really crappy ideas, I don't want to poo poo on people's ideas or whatnot, but it was kind of like when I was in a metal band several years ago, and we were really good, right? But um, the places we were playing also allowed anybody, if they could afford to get on the stage, to
Uh,
play. And I'm not against people, because at one point I was terrible. At one point, people were like, "Would you please turn that down?" What I mean? Like, I don't want to hear that anymore. But when everybody has that kind of access as well, then it kind of muddies the waters, right? And now people are like, I'm not paying this much money to come out and see these amateurs play when I could just, go somewhere else. Everybody having a voice can make things bad as well. So I believe in
Sure.
balance. If there is such a thing, if there is a way to do that, and I don't know how you can police all that without, being some kind of authoritarian or something or another. I want to go down that route, but everybody having access can also kind of backfire in its own right.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
I think this is an interesting point as a person who is a Luddite and who doesn't consume audiobooks, yet here I adapted my screenplay about Mrs. O'Leary into a play and then an audiobook for that reason, that hope, to give access, to get that's my story out there to a broader audience. So I think I take your point. So can you talk, since I am the one who's, as you said, that I'm being mean to you, and yeah, right.
Yes. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what it is to produce this audiobook? And talk about what does the consumer play a part in your producing of the audiobook? Are you thinking when you're going, I want to make this so that, the Luddite can appreciate this story, or the young person can appreciate, or is it just a matter of, I'm going to do the best thing? I mean, obviously you're going to do the best thing that you can. I'm just curious if the consumer plays a part as you're designing this.
Yeah, they really do. I don't have a particular audience in mind.
Yeah.
Like, I'm definitely not running around like, I hope these Luddites can figure this out. I'm not doing that. Or anybody else for that matter. But as a filmmaker, like, I'm super hard on films. I am really hard on films. So movies that everybody was like, oh, this is the greatest thing since life. I'm like, man, that was pure crap, and other movies that people seem to hate, I
Yeah.
actually enjoy. But what I don't like is when it's obvious that the filmmakers know that it's just a money grab. They didn't think about the plot. They just know that because it got some explosions and stuff that the guys are going to love
Oh,
it, period. That's just it.
yep.
They don't really care about the story or anything else. It's just like, we're going to make some quick cash and we'll be done. And so what I want to do with the audiobooks and anything else I produce is I really care that hopefully people, even if they don't like it, that they will walk away with some kind of experience, right? And
Mm.
I like listening to old time radio a lot, and that's kind of what I liken this audiobook unto, right? And they had sound effects and things like that. And I have listened to a lot of audiobooks where it's just somebody just basically reading, and that's okay. And such said that we're going to the forest now, and they went into the forest. And yeah, okay, that's all great, but it's kind of boring too, and especially just driving down the road from Atlanta all the way to Illinois back, for 12 hours listening to that. Eventually, you're not even hearing this person any doggone
Mm.
more, but when you add the music and the sound effects and things like that, it kind of gives it this movie-ish feel. It gives it more life. It makes it more exciting. And that's where I like to go with it.
We are here today. The audio book that Z is magically creating is, if I remember right, there are 14 chapters. Is that right? So
14, I believe so.
14
Yeah, 14,
chapters.
or 15. I think 14 is right. Yeah.
We recorded it over 3 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I am now in the kind of the tail end of a fundraising campaign to help me compensate 12 actors and Z and promote the audiobook. We plan a public release party on October 7th of this year, which is the day before the 155th anniversary of the Great Fire. So just look for my campaign page, and if the spirit moves you, I'd love for you to check out everything on the campaign page and donate if you can.
It's an exciting time to explore not only the history of the Great Chicago Fire and the myths surrounding it, but
Mhm.
also to have it being presented in a way that a lot of people probably haven't experienced yet. Not only an audiobook, but an audiobook that sounds like it's a production of film that you just can't see. You're just going to hear. So we're excited to see that come out
Thank
this
you.
fall. And Z, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time
You're
and your
welcome.
insights. And I know that Melissa's got you on a tight schedule, so I appreciate you making the time for us.
She
And
does. As soon as I'm done with this, I got to get right back to work.
Yeah. Before we sign off, dear listeners out there, the music that you heard in the beginning of this episode and the closing was scored by none other than Z.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Luddites Unite. Bye.
Luddites
Bye-bye.
Unite.
That's today's episode. Thanks for joining the conversation, and we welcome your feedback. If you're a loyal Luddite, feel free to send thoughts via carrier pigeon or smoke signal. If you've gone to the other side, email Melissa Birks at melissaannbirks@yahoo.com. That's MELISSAANNBIRKS @yahoo.com. See you soon.